What if I told you there was a way to build Tarkov weapons with the best parts for your level, an easy way to see the best combinations of stocks and suppressors, and allowed you to avoid overswing on your builds, all without opening the game? Today we are looking at a concept called Evo Ergo, which will change the way that you think about ergonomics, as well as a tool, DB for Tarkov's gun modding site, which effectively replicates the in-game weapon builder. This has some extremely neat quality of life features, but it's easier for me to just show you than simply talk about it. The project today is a weapon build for the Quest test drive. This is where you have to kill 5 PMCs over 60 meters away using an M1A with the hybrid 46 suppressor and a Schmidt & Bender 128 scope. And it's tricky because the M1A is a heavy beast and it's hard to mod properly. So this is going to be our testing ground to showcase how this website works. So if you go to dbfortarkov.com/gun, and then you get this choice here, caliber, class, or gun. I usually just search here, so we'll go M1A, and the weapon will pop up as the base configuration. This takes you into the weapon modding screen, which is very much like it is in EFT. From here, you can see all of the usual stuff: ergonomics, accuracy, vertical recoil, horizontal recoil, and velocity. And we've also got a couple of extra new things here: overswing, no or yes, which kind of does what it says on the tin, whether the weapon will have overswing or not, because this calculator has the overswing calculator built into it, so you don't need to use it anymore with the chart. There's also this concept here of Evo Ergo Delta, and this tells you how far away you are from that line. So if you've seen my videos previously on overswing and trying to get guns under the overswing threshold, this is now just an easy numeric way of figuring this out without having to use that website. You can go into the settings in the top right corner and you can set your trader levels here as well as your strength, and this then determines your arm stamina because that was calculated using the in-game as well, and the 80% headshot accuracy. This basically uses the size of the average PMC's head and the accuracy statistic that you see up here to determine what the distance is that you will 80% likely get a headshot if you're aiming at the middle of somebody's head, which is quite cool. So in order to mod our gun, you can see that we've got all the usual parts here with magazines and rounds and whatever, but this shows you some extra interesting stuff. So within the actual muzzle brakes and the different attachments, you can see that the recoil component comes up here, -4 and -1 for ergonomics, and that's the same for every individual part. On the gun itself, you have this particular metric here, which shows you the weight of the weapon when it's unloaded and when it is loaded. If I remove an attachment, so you right click on this, then this goes away and this is the same because now it can't be unloaded or loaded, ignoring this one individual round. So the goal here then is we're going to build the best weapon that we can for test drive without having overswing, because that's usually the big problem with the M1A. You have this horrible overswing ADS effect when you're trying to use it, and aiming at people is extremely irritating. Now, if you try to use the different barrels, this 22-inch barrel basically makes it really, really hard. So we'll show you first just to make sure that we can't do it this way, and then we'll swap back to the 16-inch. So if we stick on the 22-inch barrel and we look at the muzzles here, this is one of the really nice parts about this particular website. There's 2 different tabs here. The first one is just muzzle on its own, so you can, in theory, click on one of these. So if it's just a regular compensator, it just adds it. But if it's a 2-part, like the QDC, you could click that, and then another attachment piece appears here where you can add the muzzle there. The alternative, though, is you can press combo, and in combo, this shows you the multi-parts. So this is like the blast mitigation device, which has 3 pieces, any suppressor that goes onto a compensator or flash hider first, and what you can do here is you can order them by recoil, by ergonomics, and you can see which are the best overall for those particular categories, which is very, very nice. So now that we're here in this menu, I'm going to bring this right back to what I said at the beginning about this concept called Evo Ergo. Well, what actually is Evo Ergo? So the problem that you have with ergonomics is that not all ergonomics is made equal. Different amounts of ergonomics on different attachments will give you different effects because they weigh different amounts. This is especially true with things like suppressors and stocks, and Evo Ergo is trying to unify both of these things together. What makes this complicated, though, is if anybody did go and study the shape of the curve for overswing, depending on where you are in the ergonomics and weight combination, actually depends how much weight is the equivalent to ergonomics. It changes as you move up and down the curve. But what Evo Ergo is trying to do is say that at any point on the curve, if you go and add a particular attachment here, how much weight does that also add as well, and how much impact is that on your ergonomics? This means that Evo Ergo is more comparable for things like ADS speed and weapon overswing and that kind of thing, rather than just looking at ergonomics on its own, and allows us to, as I said, unify this particular concept, which is very, very cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to, in combo, we will actually sort this by Evo Ergo, and then you can see what the difference is. Obviously, the Evo Ergo is best for things that are very, very light, like just single compensators. So you do have to scroll down to try to find the first one that is a suppressor. So we'll find the first multi-part. Now, as we can see here, the Ultra 5 actually ends up coming above the Hybrid 46, and that's because the Ultra 5 is so much lighter. Even though the Ergo is 24 versus 17 for the Hybrid 46, it ends up being slightly better in Evo Ergo terms. We have to use the hybrid 46 because that is what the quest requires. And once you've done this, there's another column here, which is the Evo Ergo 2 recoil. And when you switch this around, this shows you things that are potentially better than what you have on at the moment. So we passed up the Ultra 5 before. We're getting a lot of recoil points based on every amount of Evo Ergo that we give up, which is the reason why the ratio looks crazy. The double pluses here is in respect to the ordering up here. So Evo Ergo and recoil. A plus means that we're gaining Evo Ergo and we're also gaining recoil as well. So this thing is a straight upgrade. Obviously we have to use it for the quest, so we're not going to be able to put that on here. Now, the other part of this that we need is we need the Schmidt and Bender scope. So what we're going to do first is we're actually going to go and add the combo for the stocks. We've got the SAS, the MT Crosshair, and the PRS Gen 3. This is best for recoil, but if we switch over to Evo Ergo, then we actually want the SAS stock and the PDW Viper. Pistol grips wise, again, we'll just look up Evo Ergo. This is pretty much what you'd expect because all the pistol grips weigh basically the same amount, so we'll stick that on. And then in terms of foregrips, you might also not be surprised to find that the Strike Industries Cobra is the top one there. So a lot of this, like, we kind of already know, especially if you're used to weapon modding, but this just makes it a little bit easier to compare, and especially it'd be very useful if any of these weapon rebalances happen from BSG. So if we click into the scope and look in this menu here, we have to find the first set of ring mounts, which is this one, the guys, the Super Precision, which, as you're probably aware, I've used in a couple of my videos now, which are the best for ergonomics, even though they're a bit more expensive. And we'll use the top ring cap. And inside the scope itself, we're just going to pick one. We have to use the PM 1-8 scope. So we'll put that in like this. Now, the problem here is that we need to add a magazine. If we look at these mags, we could use a 10 rounder in theory. That does actually increase our Evo Ergo, but makes it very, very small. You can do this, and you can end up with the recoil that we've got here, vertical recoil of 90. And that does actually have a positive Evo Ergo delta and no overswing. So when you aim this gun, you won't get an overswing, which is quite good. We could also stick on a front sight as well, put the Christophorus on there too. But whether you actually want to use 10 rounds is really another question. The problem is, as soon as you jump up from the 10 round mag to the 20 round mag, you can actually see the difference here. Now, there's a few important points, right? We've got +4 ergo from the 10 rounder and -3 from the 20 rounder. But magazines are one of these important categories where ammo going in there changes the weight a lot. It's like one of the biggest differences between fully loaded and unloaded and the ergonomic change effect due to this Evo Ergo statistic. If you look at like the 50 round drum, for example, going from ergo of +4 to -17 seems pretty bad. But when you look at the weight, this thing goes from 160 grams to 700 grams, but that's empty. We've now got full ammo weight, which includes the magazine, by the way. So this goes from 400 grams now, which is all of the ammo added into this, and it is based on this particular round down here. So this is for M80. This is now 400 grams for the 10 rounder and 1.9 kilograms for the 50 round drum. So the change in Evo Ergo for full ammo, which is FAEE, goes from 1.6 to -56.9. If we add this, you see we're like well into the overswing territory, and it's crazy. This is the same for the 20 rounder too. We actually dip below this Evo Ergo delta into the negative, which brings our overswing to yes, which means that when you aim the gun, you will start getting overswing. It's quite a harsh effect. From having a small positive, you don't get any overswing at all. Even going down to something like -4, -5, you start getting this overswing mechanic, which is really annoying. So if you do want to use a lower recoil version of this particular gun, then you probably have to use the 10 round mag if you're using the long barrel. If you are happy using a smaller magazine, you could probably tweak this Evo Ergo delta a little bit closer to 0 and get some better recoil without introducing the overswing effect. This is pretty much more relevant for DMRs that are really heavy, like the M1A, and the RSAS is probably another good contender because you're not really so obsessed with ADS speed per se, but you just don't want to have that overswing effect present. Now, there is one small issue with the M1A in this builder, which is on the combo. If you change to one of these, then it actually removes whatever foregrip you had on there because it's part of the SAS chassis, which is a small shame, and I'm sure that could probably get fixed relatively easily. But what we're going to do is use the combo charts to at least just look at what's best, and then we can slowly move down. So if we look at the M7A1 PDW, we can swap to that. I'm just going to move back to stocks here and then do it that way. So we'll just stick that on. That takes our Evo Ergo to 7.8. We get slightly better recoil. The next one after that is the ARE and the GL core. So if I go and add that manually, the ARE, and then onto this, we'll add the GL core buttstock. These are all at the top anyway because the Evo Ergo is so high. That's actually, already getting better without necessarily affecting our Evo Ergo overswing. Now, if we don't want to do it like this, and if we want to use the 16-inch barrel instead, I'm going to stick on the combo again for the Hybrid 46 because we have to use this. There are other ways of going about this to make it what we want. So if we go back to our combo of stocks, we go to Evo Ergo again, we stick on the Viper. I'll put the vertical foregrip back on. Now we can actually get away with a 20 round magazine because this puts us to an Evo Ergo of 0. This is right on the threshold of having an overswing, and I went to go and test these, and it does in fact not have any overswing at all, which is quite good. So now we've got a 20 rounder rather than a 10, which for me personally, using a DMR style weapon is just much more appealing. But if we go to the 30 rounder, then the Evo Ergo is just nowhere near good enough because the extra 10 rounds weigh too much, and so you end up in the overswing territory there, so you can't use them. So you have to use the 20. So this is really the way to use this particular calculator. There's another couple of little features in here, which is sort of interesting. As we said before, you can set your trader level on this. If you put your traders to whatever they are at the moment and do confirm, there's actually a button up here which says only trader level. So this then shows you, as you move around the different menus, it shows you the parts that you can buy at that particular trader level, and it's only the traders, it doesn't include the flea market, which is pretty cool. And you can see the trader level just here next to it as well. It's got like the price, and it's also got the trader with the trader level that you need to be able to access that stuff. So if I just get rid of that, you can see in the list again, if we go back to like the stocks, for example, you can see that, you know, there's level 2, level 2, level 3. So this could just help a lot with building stuff that's actually appropriate for your particular level. That's basically it. It's got an estimate of the prices down here as well. I mean, there's barters and stuff that it probably doesn't take into account, so, you know, make of that what you will. But I do think that this is a useful tool for just kind of test bedding stuff and stops you from having to use the chart for the overswing. This is very useful for just plugging a build in and seeing what the overswing is going to look like. That's probably the best part about this, in my opinion, but the combos are really good as well, just for looking at what's good and what's not, giving you a handy resource where you don't need to, you know, have a spreadsheet or use my sheet. I'll probably still use some of my spreadsheets because, you know, it's got every single possible combination in all its gory detail, but if you want a reference guide, then this is a pretty good one to look at. So as usual, a big shout out to all my patrons, and as always, have fun in your raids.